There are lots of financial talking heads out there, but there's only one who's local to Tucson. Welcome to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner, and he's here to help you with your financial questions. Today, we'll try to educate you about the financial world and encourage you to think of solutions to your financial goals. So, let's get started. Saving with Silverman starts now.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Thank you so much for listening to the show today. As always, joining us here and serving our listening audience right here in Tucson and Southern Arizona is, of course, Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates. Mark is a CFP, that's a certified financial planner professional, and he is available to you at any time by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Again, you can call or text, whichever one is easier and more convenient for you. And today, it's the Mark and Mark Show. I'm your host, Mark Killian, sitting in with Mark today. And Mark, let's talk about the glory days. How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing great, Mark. It's been a while. How have you been?
I'm doing very good. I'm very excited to talk to you. As you can tell, I'm already jumping into the first topic before I even said hello.
There we go.
So, but I'm looking forward to a great show today. We got a lot of good stuff on tap. The glory days, as I mentioned, we're going to dive into that. Elephants in the room, story time, getting to know you, and of course our mailbag at the end of the show. So lots to cover today on Saving with Silverman. So let's dive in and see what we got today. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, so the glory days, as I've mentioned, Mark, you and I have been out of school for a while now. We're getting a little older, right? We're about the same age, I think, and It's fun to reflect back on the glory days. I'm not sure when your glory days were, if it was high school or college, or maybe it's now, but...
My whole life's been glory days.
Oh, well, there you go. I like that answer.
Just keeps getting better and better with time.
It just keeps getting better. Yeah, well, that is
like
true.
Wine.
I am aging like wine, as opposed to my wife says it's more like milk, but you know.
Sour milk.
That's right. But anyway, in finance, in the financial world, it's just kind of the same thing. You know, it can be fun to reflect back on the glory days of your life and the way things used to be. And again, it's no different in the financial world. Retirement planning used to be a whole lot easier than it is now. And of course, you know that better than most. So let's discuss a few issues that make retirement planning harder in today's modern world. For example, there's just less pensions, right? That's the first thing that jumps out at you. They've kind of gone the way of the dinosaur.
They have. And, for a lot of folks, we work with a lot of people. I'd say Raytheon is probably one of the larger companies here that in town. And we do have a lot of clients that, had pension or have pensions. And then we have a lot of clients that don't have pensions, depending on when those people started to work there. But, pensions are harder and harder to find if you haven't worked for a company that's typically affiliated with the government, or school, that sort of thing, then you don't have pensions. And so we're seeing more and more people without pensions. So, not that it creates challenges, but, we just have to think outside the box a little bit more to create a pension or create that income. And there's different ways of doing that. But, the days of pensions are decreasing. And unfortunately, I think that trend's going to continue. But there are ways to work around that. And there are some solutions out there that can replicate that. So there is hope.
Well, that's all good, because hope is something we all need, I think, in our daily lives, no matter what the topic is, but certainly when it comes to financial planning. What about longer life expectancies? That's also, growing and growing and growing. I think, what is it, the 100-year-old demographic is the highest growing age group right now?
That's what they say. The good news is people are living longer. The bad news is people are living longer.
Exactly.
So it depends on what your perspective is. Exactly. So, people are living longer. So when we are building plans for folks, we're just showing a longer life expectancy. And some plans that we're running, we're showing somebody in their 90s. We're showing people into their hundreds, depending on, family history, those sorts of things. So it just creates that we need to plan for those sorts of things. One of the benefits, though, is life insurance is actually cheaper now.
Yeah.
With the new mortality tables that most of the companies have adopted, I should say, showing that people are living longer, life insurance is actually cheaper. And there's very few things that are cheaper these days. But we're able to show that with, life insurance policies or replace policies and improve people's situation, meaning, taking somebody that might have an old policy that they've had for years and assuming they're still insurable, showing less of a premium, less money that they have to pay into it, or even no premium in some cases, or more benefits for the same premium. So there are some opportunities there where you can improve your situation with that. So, again, we have to take these things into consideration. the path is always changing. The situations are always changing. So we just have to adapt, and that's what we do with our clients.
Yeah, it's a fluid situation for sure, because if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you're thinking, well, especially if you kind of have this mindset of, well, my parents lived this long or whatever, and you're not really planning correctly for a possible longer life expectancy, you could get yourself into some trouble. And as we all know, the number one thing that people worry about is running out of money before they run out of life. So you want to make sure that you are doing the right things when it comes to longer life expectancies. We're talking about glory days here on Saving with Silverman. Some things that makes it a little harder now than it used to be when planning and trying to prepare for retirement. The sandwich generation, Mark, have you heard that term? I'm sure you have. I'm actually kind of in that group right now, where you're taking care of not only your college age kids, but also your parents. So I'm taking care of both my daughter and my mother.
We do see this occasionally, but we all also see where, we have people that are coming in who are either close to retirement or even in retirement, who still have maybe one or two of their parents still around, and they do have to take care of them. And that's usually where we have the conversation about long-term care, because, they're in a situation, maybe they're dealing with their parents and maybe they're concerned for their own situation. So we do see that. We also see it where they maybe do have some kids that are still in college and they're trying to get through that sort of thing.
Or even back home nowadays sometimes, right? They've moved back in with you.
That's true. That's true. So, everybody's situation, again, is different. So, I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most, is hearing about people's different situations. And I can tell you, if everybody's situation was the same, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, because my job would be very, very boring. But I do like the challenges of understanding people's situation, what their needs are, and that sort of thing, and coming up with a plan that's going to work for them and that's going to solve their problems.
Well, I think that's a great piece in trying to find the right advisor for you versus maybe some of these cookie cutter kind of deals, because you want to get to know somebody and you want them to know about you. So that's very important. That one of the things that you enjoy most about your job is getting to learn the different situations so that you can help everybody out and know them, know their family, know their needs. And that's what we're talking about, where our glory days, where it's a little harder now than it used to be to plan for retirement and get set for it. We're talking with Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates. And Mark, you mentioned already longer life expectancies and long-term care, higher health costs, right? It's not going to get any lower.
No, and unfortunately, so in our practice, we use a 3% inflation rate. However, if you look at medical inflation, the last number I saw showed 6.5%. And I think that trend's going to continue, unfortunately. So, understanding how you're going to pay for higher healthcare costs. Certain things are covered with Medicare, that sort of thing, or if you have a good supplement, that helps. But, long-term care, in-home care, some things that might not be covered, how are you going to pay for those? Are you going to self-pay, self-insure, or are you going to have a traditional long-term care policy? As I mentioned before, there are some accelerated death benefits and some policies with life insurance that can work very, very well, that we're seeing a lot of people go that route, or even there are some annuities that have some options there as well. So, it's just having these conversations. And like you said, Mark, when people come in, it's not a financial conversation that we're really having. It's really a different type of conversation where we're really learning about your goals, about your objectives, what you're really trying to accomplish, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what's really the most important. We'll work out the final details and all those sorts of things and help you with that kind of thing. But, having these conversations of what you envision, what you want to accomplish, is really what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah, the X's and O's are obviously very important, but I think also the communication and understanding one another is equally important, and dreams and goals are certainly go to a part of that. What about more takers than contributors nowadays to Social Security? That's something that I don't think people were kind of thinking about way back when.
No, and Social Security is a big one. I mean, it used to be you hit a certain age and you just take it. Now there's some incentives to delay it. Should you take it early at age 62? Should you take it at full retirement age, which for most people 66 to 67, or do you delay it till 70? And the benefit being is if you delay it, it does grow at 8% a year, which again, the only way you get 8% guaranteed these days is through the government. So these are the types of decisions we help our clients with. And so, if, there's lots of decisions that need to be made. And if you don't have somebody and trust that can help you with these things, that's what we're here for, is to look at the whole picture and really help guide you to give you the right type of advice, rather than be there just to sell you a product, whether it be an annuity, mutual fund, et cetera, which, most people, unfortunately, in this industry are really financial salespeople. They're not financial advising. They're selling things. So if this is the type of thing that interests you, I encourage you to reach out to us.
Well, our final topic here, Mark, on Glory Days, things that make it harder now than it used to be when planning and prepping for retirement, is going to be low interest rates. Now, we've seen some changes over the last, 6 months or so with the new administration, but there is definitely still, it's still pretty dang low out there.
Absolutely. So yeah, we have seen a little bit of a spike in interest rates, and that trend hopefully will be continuing. That's what they're saying, at least. So it has created challenges over the last, seems like decade or so with these low interest rates. People that want to live off the interest has become very, very challenging with low interest rate environment. However, there are workarounds, and there's other things that we have to do. We have to take where we are right now and make sure that you have a solid plan given where we are and where we may see things going. So it's important to understand the overall picture and what these low interest rates might mean. If we do see rates increase, that could be a good thing. In the short term, it could be a bad thing for people that already are in, fixed income type of investments such as bonds, et cetera. But in the long run, that should benefit people. So it's just understanding these things and how they all work together. And that's really what we're trying to do with folks, is really help them and answer those sorts of questions.
Well, folks, if you'd like to get some of these questions answered for yourself, what you need to do is reach out to Mark, call him or text him, and come in for a consultation. And Mark, what does that look like for folks?
Whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through the process we call the financial physical. I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt management if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets, and we'll benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. And this becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you, whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 10 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, 520-333-7601 for the next 10 callers. 520-333-7601. That's your number to call or text, whichever one is more convenient for you. Go ahead and get your financial physical with Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. 520-333-7601 to get this process started for this comprehensive financial review with no obligation, no cost, no obligation. Stay tuned, folks. There is more Saving with Silverman on the other side. We'll be right back.
Life is complicated. It's full of twists and turns and complex issues. The last things you need when planning your financial future are confusing numbers and advisors who just offer you a sales pitch. We believe there's a simpler way to invest. Your financial plan should be built on a plan that's made just for you. It's all about discovering your goals and designing a strategy that will help you get where you want to go. And don't worry, we'll track your progress along the way. Stop wandering your way through your investing life. Come in for a visit today. To schedule a visit, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now. Or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years, you lovingly sacrificed for your family. Now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
We're back here on Saving with Silverman because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Mark Killian here alongside with Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. He is the president there. He's also a CFP, that's a certified financial planner professional, serving all of Tucson and southern Arizona. If you'd like to reach out to Mark, it's 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. You can call or text, whichever one's easier to you. And, if you want to call and talk to Mark about the basketball game, he'll do that as well. But your time would probably be better served to talk about your financial and retirement plans. But, hey, Mark loves his local teams, and he certainly loves basketball teams, so he'll be happy to talk about that as well. So now that we've got the elephant in the room out, Mark, that's what I was going to use as my segue. The elephants in the room, when it comes to retirement planning, there can be a lot of these. And so I know you're kind of still miffed about the whole, March Madness this year. So let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room when it comes to good retirement plans and how to address these elephants, since there's not much you can do about that elephant, okay?
That's true.
So the first
bygones
one.
Be bygones.
Bygones be bygones, right? You got to do what you got to do. So the elephant in the room of possibly outliving your money. I said it in the last section. That is the number one concern of most people, is outliving their money.
And to be honest with you, most people have no clue whether they can or they can't. They might have an idea. So if you're working with an advisor that's basically sold you some products but hasn't done a comprehensive financial plan for you, how do you really know where you stand in relation to your goals? And again, we talked about the number one goal being the possibility of outliving your money. How do you know where you stand? Have you seen the numbers? Have you seen a sheet that shows you exactly where you would be if, with different assumptions and different rates of return, inflation, all these different things, life expectancy and your goals, to show you where you stand? And without having a financial plan, how do you really know that? And I think a lot of advisors out there aren't really doing their clients any justice, because all they're really doing is selling products without running these numbers. I have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for my client's best interest. So that's why we do take a planning approach. And if you are working with an advisor that has done a comprehensive plan for you, great, you're in great shape. And that's a great thing. But if you're not, I urge you to see what it looks like to work with someone who is really out there that's going to put a plan together for you, because you really need to know these things. You need to know where you stand, inflation, all these different things that could happen. And again, it's important that you have these conversations. And if your advisor is not having these conversations with you, that's not the type of relationship you probably want to be in.
Well, you mentioned inflation, and that's where I was going to go next, Mark. Another elephant in the room is just that relentless creep of inflation. It just kind of, it's kind of like a marching line, right? In the old war type movies, it just keeps coming.
It does keep coming, and we like to illustrate it, and I think that's probably one of the most underestimated things is people don't think about inflation. We use 3% in our practice, and I think that's a fair number. That number, unfortunately, will probably have to increase over time. I mentioned it earlier. Medical inflation is around 6.5%, which is very, very hard to maintain. And again, this is a real problem for a lot of folks, and it's a real conversation. It's something that you need to think about. And if you are lucky enough to have a pension, great. If you're like most people, you don't, and all you have is maybe Social Security and then your investment assets. And how are you going to, take your assets and turning it into income that you can't outlive? And there's ways to do that, but inflation's a big one. And most pensions, Social Security does increase a little bit, but most pensions don't. And so how are you going to have an increasing income in retirement to keep up with expenses and those sorts of things? And it's something that it's a conversation you need to have and know where you stand in relation to it.
Yeah, inflation is just like calories, folks, and it's going to keep coming. It's going to keep creeping on you and expanding your waistline if you're not looking out for it. So you got to make sure that you're keeping an eye on that. And Mark, we briefly talked about this this next one here on the last section, which was interest rates. But I'll change it from being the low interest rates to now maybe being more unpredictable as the economy continues to grow or whatever is happening with the new administration. Right now, the predictability or unpredictability of interest rates could be there.
Well, everything's unpredictable. I mean,
true.
We don't have a crystal ball. We don't. Nobody does. And if anybody tells you they do, you want to run as fast as you can from that person.
I guarantee it doesn't work. Yeah.
Exactly. So, we do need to make certain assumptions, but we need to understand where we are in relation to the market, and we still are in a very, very low interest rate environment. Even with the spike in interest rates that we've seen relative to where we have been, it's still very, very low. We need to work around those and come up with options and show you what's the best solutions, what's the best options for you to get you the income and that sort of thing for your retirement plan. So, again, that's why it's so important to have a plan. If you're just sold products, you don't know where you stand and you still have questions. And I can tell you, when most people come into the office, not most, when everybody comes into the office, they have one or more concerns. And so that's the reason why they're calling us, is because they want to see how we would address these concerns and really know where they stand. And if they are working with someone, great, they are still having concerns that aren't being addressed. If they're doing it themselves, they might really not know where they stand, and there's some things that they haven't thought about, or they want some help and guidance to know what their options are.
Well, folks, if you'd like to know what your options are and you'd like to sit down with an actual professional, a certified financial planner, and a professional, then give a call to Mark Silverman, 520-333-7601, and see what it is like to talk and work with someone who truly understands this from a professional planning standpoint, and as Mark said, maybe just not from a sales pitch kind of standpoint with the hot topic or the hot product of the month. 520-333-7601. That's your number to call. We're talking about elephants in the room here on Saving with Silverman. And Mark, let's talk about the Trump bump. The volatility of the stock market. I mean, it's been awesome, right? The last, 4 or 5 months or so, basically ever since the election, the market's been tearing along. We've seen record numbers up, dip a little bit, so on and so forth, but it's always going to be volatile. And I know people want to kind of capitalize while they can, but you got to be prepared for the downside.
True. And I mean, I think you have to take that with a grain of salt as well. Again, there's still a lot of volatility. The markets are still going to be volatile. We're going to see lots of ups and downs in a given day. And what you need to focus on is your risk tolerance. And if that's the key, is right there, is understanding what your comfort level is, where you are in relation to your goals, how does your plan look with those numbers? And again, understanding that we have seen a great run up. Our clients have done very, very well as of late with the markets, and certainly we'd like to see that continue. But the fact of the matter is, nobody knows what's going to continue, and we are due for a correction. With that being said, and whether that's this year or next year, we know that a correction will be coming. So it's being prepared in case we do have another 2008. Hopefully it doesn't get that severe, but again, I think it's the second biggest bull market in the history. And so, having understood that, you need to be prepared and not be one of these ones who took a big loss in 2008. Being prepared and making sure you're taking the right amount of risk and not being too aggressive with your investments and understanding the type of risks. And that's something we really try to educate our clients on.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd say, I guess greed right now is probably something you really got to combat, because I'm sure folks are like, oh, it's just tearing along. I really want to stay in and make what I can make. Or folks are doing the opposite of what they should be doing. They're jumping in right now and buying when it's really high. So you want to make sure that you do have that well-rounded plan so that you're prepared for all aspects, because you just don't know what's going to happen when it comes with that. And finally, Mark, our final elephant in the room can also go along with what's happening with the with the markets, and obviously with our new administration, is the threat of rising taxes. They have to go up. I mean, there's just too much debt. There's too much government debt.
Absolutely, and we've seen tax rates rising the last couple of years. And I think that trend will have to continue, unfortunately, because we have this national debt, which is not going to pay itself off. Unfortunately, it's going to come from us. So we're going to, I think, continue to see tax rates continue to increase because they need that revenue. And so, we're big believers in It's not what you make, it's what you get after you pay taxes and fees. So you do need to consider that, and we understand that as well. And that's why we take tax planning so seriously with our strategies, as far as making sure we can maximize and look for ways to save our clients money on taxes wherever possible. And so that's part of what we do as well. So it's understanding how all these pieces really work together to make sure that you have a solid plan. And if you're working again with someone who's not taking all these things in consideration, that is more focused on selling you a particular product, again, is that really in your best interest? I would say probably not. But again, that you have to come to your own conclusions with that. But I think it's important that you understand how all these pieces really work together, and making sure that you have a solid plan to get you through all these different things, because these are things that we help with our clients. And we've gone through clients who have, before retirement. We have a lot of clients that are actually in retirement. And so helping clients through all these different stages and making sure that we can position you properly to have the type of retirement and give you a great evaluation of where you stand. And so that's something we're happy to help with. If anybody's interested, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to show you how our process works.
Well, and on that note, Mark, tell us a little bit about the white paper. You and I were talking about that off air before we started. I know that's something that you've done, and then you'd like to offer that out to the listeners today.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity. Especially, we have the new show now that we're happy to be part of, the Saving with Silverman. We have our own show finally, and what I'll do at this point is I wrote a white paper recently called "The 10 Biggest Mistakes People Make in Retirement," and these are things that I've gathered over the last 20 plus years of mistakes I've seen people make. And my hope is that you don't repeat these same mistakes. So it's a short white paper. I'd be happy to send that out through email to anybody that is interested. There's no cost, no obligation for it. Just simply give us a call or send us a text, and please include the spelling, the correct email address, and we'll be happy to get that out to you. Hopefully it gets you some good information in there. We've had people that have received it. We've gotten a good response on it, and that's really what we're trying to do, is provide good advice and good guidance for people. And trying to help people the best way that we can.
All right, folks. Well, if you'd like to get your own free white paper from Mark Silverman and Silverman Associates, go ahead and text or call 520-333-7601. And as Mark said, make sure you leave your information definitely with your email address, so they can get you this white paper out, the top 10 mistakes people make in retirement, from Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates. And of course, if you'd like to come in for a consultation, it's no cost, no obligation. Just sit down with Mark and find out where you're at, kind of get a pulse check, get a financial physical, if you will. 520-333-7601. That's your number to call. Stick around. We'll be right back with more Mark Silverman here on Saving with Silverman.
Did you know that Mark Silverman and his team offer a complimentary Get Acquainted meeting where you can learn more about what he can do for you? The goal is to determine whether you might be a good fit for each other. That's because the folks at Silverman and Associates are all about building long-standing relationships. They aren't offering you a slick sales pitch or a get-rich-quick approach to retirement. Instead, Mark offers a simpler approach to investing. It's based upon your goals, and his strategies are tailored to your needs. To find out more about his unique planning process, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
If you've ever asked yourself what a well-balanced financial portfolio looks like, keep listening to Saving with Silverman, and you'll find out.
Well, it's getting to know you time right here on Saving with Silverman. And this is that fun part of the show where we ask random and off-the-wall questions. And Mark, you know how this goes. Sometimes they're very intriguing. Sometimes they're just zany. Sometimes they're sweet. You just never know what you're going to get with these things. So we let the producers out of the closet that we keep them in most of the time to come up with some new questions. And here's what they got. We want to know, when is the time in your life that you were the most angry? I think they were mad because we left them in the closet too long.
Most angry.
Yeah, wow. Right. I know, right?
I don't really have a lot of anger. I'm pretty well grounded and calm, for those people that know me.
Yeah, as I was reading this, I was thinking, you're a laid back guy. This should be interesting.
I'm gonna say the last time I was angry was probably, I'm still angry at the fact that Arizona lost to Xavier.
Okay, there you go.
A few weeks ago, which we should have been going along. We should have been in the Final Four, if not winning the Final Four. I think we would have beat Gonzaga. I would have to say, yeah, let's go with Arizona losing to Xavier. I'm still upset
The
about
most
that.
recent. Okay, there you go.
That was
Nothing
an
wrong with
opportunity.
that.
We let get away for sure.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. So, all right, well, there you go. So, interesting question. Interesting getting to know you this week right here on Saving with Silverman. So, if you want to make Mark upset, just, don't talk about basketball right now.
There we go. Next
All right,
season.
there you go, next season. All right, folks, make sure you reach out to Mark by calling or texting at 520-333-7601. That's our Getting to Know You here on Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman & Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
We're back here on Saving with Silverman. Thanks for sticking around with us this hour as Mark Silverman and I talk about the worlds of finance and retirement. We certainly appreciate you listening to the show because, making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. And that's what the show is all about, is helping you make smarter choices about your money. Of course, Mark Silverman is the president of Silverman and Associates right here in Tucson, serving Tucson and Southern Arizona. You can reach out to Mark by calling or texting 520-333-7601. And if you're not a big texter, I guarantee you your grandkids are, so they can certainly help you do it. 520-333-7601. Well, Mark, let's get lazy and talk about lazy money. We'll just start with a simple one. What is it? What is lazy money? When I say that, what am I talking about?
What we think of lazy money is money that's sitting there that's not keeping pace with inflation. And if you've listened to the show for a while, you probably heard me say this, but I'm a big believer, even in the most conservative portfolio, you should be netting after fees and expenses 3% per year just to stay on pace with inflation, as we're using a 3% inflation rate in our projections. So, and you do need a certain amount of money, cash reserves, and that's something that, we can talk about. But typically the number is somewhere between 3 to 6 months worth of expenses should be liquid. And that's money that could be lazy, putting it in savings, checking, money markets, CDs, those sorts of things. And in some cases, we'll even have clients that are even more conservative. We'll show maybe up to 12 months worth of expenses should be liquid. Any more than that, however, and we've seen a lot of cases recently, especially this year, we've seen in excess of a lot more than that percentage-wise in those sorts of types of accounts. And again, you're losing purchasing power. And there's certain things, and we can illustrate for you and show you just a shift of those investments into higher yielding investments with minimal risk. And really show you what that would kind of impact that'll have, because really what you're losing is purchasing power, and we need to keep that purchasing power. We've talked about longevity and life expectancy. We need to make sure that purchasing power can stay for a long time. So again, it's money that's sitting in checking, savings, CDs, money markets, those sorts of things, and you need a certain amount for cash reserves, but any more than that, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things with.
Yeah, because having it just sitting around the house, in your mattress or in a coffee can, it's basically the same thing. It's just not going anywhere. And it's, you might have, actually, come to think of it, did you see that story, Mark, where some people found a whole lot of money, like $100,000 in the back of an old TV set? And the gentleman had been keeping it in there for retirement or for legacy to give to grandkids or something like that. And it made me think about that, because I know we've talked about here on the show before. If he had that $100,000 in there for 10 years or 20 years, it doesn't buy the same thing as when he put it in there today as it did 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really, it's protecting your purchasing power. And again, you just want to make sure that you're positioned properly, and that's what everybody's looking for. And again, I think some people are still, we've seen this cases a lot lately. It seems like people, know that they have too much sitting in cash, but they just don't know what to do with it. And that's why, it makes sense to have that type of conversation, so you can see the opportunity cost of what you're really missing out on, but just changing the allocation.
Well, why do you think somebody like this gentleman and folks that you see, are putting it someplace to where it's going to be too lazy, and just why are they doing it?
I think some people are in fear of where we are, with the market. We're seeing the market hit all-time highs, and certainly that's it's a good thing in one respect. But on the other side, is it too late to get in now, because we are due for a correction? So that's a conversation we should have. Interest rates, is there an incentive to put that into some type of fixed income or bonds, that sort of thing? That's a conversation to have. And some people are scared of, maybe they still remember what happened in, the last financial crisis, which was late 07, early 09. And so, but it's understanding those, because the markets have run up significantly since that. I think I said earlier, this is the second longest bull market in the history. So it's just understanding those, but it's, having a plan and looking at all these different things in relation to your overall goals and objectives, and making sure that you have a solid plan. And I think people are scared and they don't know where to turn.
Well, we've already kind of talked about lazy money and a lot of what it's going to do to your buying power. And so I'll rephrase this question a little bit. I was going to ask you, why do you feel it's dangerous to have too much in lazy money? Clearly, significant buying power loss is the first one, but maybe there's another motivation or another reason in there why you need to be concerned and scared of having too much lazy money.
Well, I don't think people understand the risk versus return factor. They think everything has to either be in the stock market or they have to tie it all up into an annuity or something like that. And it's not like that. There's lots of different options that are out there, and there's a lot of options that are out there that are liquid and those sorts of things, which can enhance the return with a minimal amount of risk. And people don't understand those things. But that's a conversation that you need to have and educate yourself on. And then once you have all the facts, it's easier to make those decisions of what you do or not want to do. And we find that when people have all the information, they can come to their own conclusions and see what makes sense to them, especially if we've done our job and our planning correctly, which is what we strive for.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was just saying, maybe being a little narrow-minded in your focus, then thinking that there's only one or two ways you can use this lazy money when there's others out there you just may not be aware of.
Well, if you listen to this show, then most people are. There's a lot of people on stations I know, certainly here in Tucson, that are basically just pushing annuities, and I don't think that's always the best option for a lot of folks, or putting it all into certain funds and that sort of thing. So it's either risk or safety. There's no middle ground, and there are middle ground. There's lots of options, and you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, but you need somebody to evaluate that whole basket. And unfortunately, too many advisors are just focused on selling things, and they're only looking at one piece of the puzzle, and they don't look at the whole thing. And that's why we take a comprehensive approach into what we do. Okay.
Well, we'll finish off by saying, there's folks out there that clearly have too much lazy money, like the gentleman with the TV. If they're hesitant to make a change, give me just a couple of items on ways to think about to how to make them change their mind or help them see that there's a better way.
Well, coming in and having a conversation with us and seeing what we do, how we help clients is really the key, and help with these sorts of decisions. Because again, that's really, when people say, what do you do? It's how we help people. That's what I try to focus on, is here's how we can help people. And a lot of these are recurring themes of how we help people, but sometimes we have to think outside the box, and that's what makes my job interesting. But, some of these things that we just talked about can really be addressed by the white paper that I wrote, which I'm happy to send out to folks. Again, I think it's a good opportunity to do that, Mark, where I wrote a white paper recently called The Top 10 Mistakes People Make in Retirement. And what I want to do is get that information out. And these are things that I've observed over the last 20 plus years. And my hope is you don't repeat these same things, but it's got some good information in there. Again, there's no cost or anything like that, obligation to get that. You don't have to have a certain asset level to request that. All you have to do is give us a call or send us a text. Just make sure that you give us your email address, and we'll be happy to get that over to you and provide you with that information. And hopefully it helps you in your retirement. If you want to continue the conversation and see what it looks like to meet with us or our process to go through our financial physical, certainly we can have that conversation with you as well.
All right, folks. Well, to reach out and take advantage of this great offer, to get this white paper from Mark Silverman, and as he said, there's no obligation to it or anything. It's simply an extension, I guess, of the education we're trying to provide here on the radio program, Saving with Silverman. Reach out for your complimentary white paper, 520-333-7601. You can call that or text it, whichever one's convenient for you, 520-333-7601 for that complimentary white paper from Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. Again, 520-333-7601. Stay tuned. We're coming back in just a moment with our mailbag.
Have you ever heard that story about the grasshopper and the ant? The one where the grasshopper fails to plan in the spring and almost starves to death in the winter? Learn from that. Don't wait until it's too late to get your finances in order. Start your path to a rewarding retirement today. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, we're back here on Saving with Silverman. Mark Killian alongside, of course, Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates. 520-333-7601 is your number to call to get a hold of Mark and come in and sit down and have a conversation about your unique situation. And now, Mark, what we're going to do is I want you to get out your slippers and your favorite robe and a bottle of wine. We're going to sit by the fire and have story time.
There we go.
So, no, what I want to do is a little kind of a case study, I guess, if you will. If you'll maybe tell us about a time when somebody came to you thinking about their financial situation and feeling it was though it was hopeless, but you were able to, make some positive changes and differences for them and get them back on the right track and get them looking forward to retirement once again.
We're always helping folks, and some people come in better shape than others. But there's always changes that should be made. So like I said, some need more changes than others. Sometimes it's just a few minor adjustments. Sometimes it's major changes. But we're always trying to improve the lives of people. But I think the most recent would be a gentleman that we started working with a couple months ago that came in, actually called in from the radio show, widowed. Has been widowed for a couple of years now, and he realized he wasn't in the best shape. He was working with one of the major banks here in town, had an advisor there who had basically just sold him some products. Didn't really know where he stood, but he knew that his accounts were going down. He was spending more than he was making with his investments and Social Security, that sort of thing. Didn't have a pension, was self-employed for his life, for his career. And basically what we did is we were able to just change a few of the investments that we had. He had one that he was going to plan on using for a different purpose, and we ended up using that to create more income for him. And with just the few changes that we made, he's in great shape now, and he's able to have the income and the retirement that he was hoping for, which has been great. We just literally got all the pieces of his puzzle put together, implemented the changes, and reran the numbers, and now he's going to be fine. And so, and able to do all the things that he wanted to do, as well as, he wanted, he had some children that he wanted to give certain amounts of money to. That's going to happen. And so, everything that he was hoping to do, we're able to do by just making some minor tweaks and some, not minor, but some tweaking of things and changing some of the investment strategies and looking at things differently, and turning some of the growth investments he had into income investments and just repositioning things. And now he's got a much more solid plan and able to, again, do the things that he wanted to do and with the peace of mind knowing he can sleep at night without having to worry about, running out of money, which is the ultimate, his ultimate fear.
I've got to imagine that is one of the parts of your job that's got to be just awesome. It's just got to be really rewarding to be able to see that look on somebody's face once you are able to give them that news that, hey, we've fixed the situation, we've gotten you where you need to be, and just kind of see that, I guess just that look come back on their face of relief.
Well, and a lot of people that come to us, most of them are already working with advisors, have worked with advisors in the past. We do have some that are been do-it-yourselfers for most of their lives, but they don't really know where they stand. And that's why it's so important to have a plan and know exactly, have somebody evaluate it and say, here's, what you've been doing. Here's what you want to do. Here's where you want to be. Are you on track? Are you not on track? And just with some minor changes, we can actually illustrate and show them exactly how we can get them from point A to point B. And, sometimes, like I said earlier, it's easier. Some plans are easier than others. Some take a little bit more changes to get them where they need to be, or maybe there's some compromises and those sorts of things. But, showing people where they are and where they need to be. And there's no silver bullet, as you know, Mark. But again, that's what really gives me satisfaction is every case is different. Everybody's situation is different. So really helping people is the bottom line, but getting people to from one place to another and making sure that they have a solid plan is really what gives us satisfaction, knowing that they're going to have the peace of mind, being able to achieve what they want to achieve. And again, everybody's situation is different. So that's important to understand. And that's what I enjoy doing is putting these pieces of the puzzle together, if you will, to make sure people have a solid plan and what will work and what won't. In some cases, unfortunately, what won't work. But you're better off knowing that now than later, as I've said before. You've heard me say this, Mark. If you're going to run out of money, would you rather know today or after it's happened?
Right,
so,
right.
You're better off knowing now and evaluating that, and so we can get you on the right track.
Well, you're a problem solver is what it sounds like. And it also sounds like what you enjoy to do. You're able to take those pieces, as you said, you're able to put that puzzle back together and make sure that folks are going in the right direction and on the right roadmap, if you will. They've finally got a roadmap, take them to the right place. So there you go, folks. Well, that's our story time for this week here on Saving with Silverman. If you'd like to get yourself onto the right path, the right road with your own financial roadmap, then give Mark a call. You can call him or text him 520-333-7601. It's very easy to do. There's very low pressure. It's just a simple text. He'll get back with you. Come in, have a conversation. 520-333-7601 to talk with Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates. We'll be right back with more Saving with Silverman.
At Silverman and Associates, we understand that life can be expensive. There are bills to pay, and you might have loved ones you want to look after. With all those extra expenses, it's easy to neglect your own financial health. We want to make sure you'll be well cared for when the time comes. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, we're coming down the home stretch here today on Saving with Silverman. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to the show. We certainly appreciate it. It's been Mark and Mark today here on the program. I'm your host, Mark Killian, alongside with our star of the show, Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates. He's a CFP, that's a certified financial planner professional, and I ask him the questions and he gives us the answers, and or at least he gives us some ideas on some things to think about. And of course, you can certainly get your own information from Mark as well by reaching out to him at 520-333-7601. But now it's time for our mailbag, and that's where you get to ask him some questions and see what he's got in up his sleeve for you to try to help you out with some ideas or some things to think about as you're planning for your retirement and your financial situation. Again, 520-333-7601. Don't forget, if you want to send your own question in, you can go to savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Send a question in. We'll take the best ones through the course of the week, and we'll put them out on the show each and every week. All right, Mark, so let's dive in and see if we can help out Chip. And Chip is in Marana. And he says, hey, Mark, if interest rates continue or start to go up any higher over the next couple of years, what kind of effect, if any, should I expect that to have on my portfolio?
Great question, Chip, and thanks for reaching out. We have seen rates continue to increase. Whether that trend continues or not, we don't know. The government claims that they are going to continue to have some more interest rate hikes. But what it's going to do in the short term is if you already have, whether you own bonds or bond funds or bond ETFs, et cetera, you'll see those, unfortunately, will drop in value in the short term. However, as those bonds are called and matured, you should be reinvesting at higher interest rates. So that should be a good thing, which should help you in the long run if we see interest rates kind of get back to where the norms were. And we have new norms now, and because we've been in a low interest rate environment for some time. But if we do see them continue to kind of move in the higher direction, ultimately that should help investors. Where it might hurt is, people refinancing mortgages or businesses borrowing and those sorts of things. We might see that harm the economy. But as far as your portfolio, that should have a positive effect if we do see that.
All right, Chip, great question. We certainly appreciate that. Continue listening to the show. And if you'd like to talk to Mark, go ahead and send him a text or call him to really discuss it further, 520-333-7601. All right, question here from Doug in Vail. And Doug wants to know, is a reverse mortgage a bad idea? I've been thinking about it as a way to have a little more money to spend on travel during the first part or the early years of our retirement. What's your thoughts on the reverse mortgage?
Another great question, Doug, and we've had this question before. And let me just say this. I am not, I don't do mortgages here, but I have used a reverse mortgage as a tool, and it's actually benefited a few of my clients. What I can tell you is, does everybody need a reverse mortgage? Absolutely not. But in certain circumstances, I think it makes sense. And that's probably true with most investments. Not every investment, if it's good for one, doesn't mean it's good for the other. Everybody's situation is, of course, differently. But I think in certain circumstances, a reverse mortgage can make a lot of sense. In other circumstances, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I can tell you that compared to a regular mortgage, reverse mortgages tend to be more expensive. So that's something you need to keep in mind. But if you have a lot tied up in your house and you need that extra income and you have no other assets to turn to, it could work as a good financial tool. But again, you have to look at all the different pieces. If that's a conversation you want to have, and again, I don't do reverse mortgages here. We don't do mortgages in our office, but we do have some people that do them that we can refer you to that are reputable, that we know and trust. I'm happy to make that introduction to you. So, great question. But if you, again, you want to dig a little deeper and have that conversation where we can look at all the different avenues, whether reverse mortgage makes sense or if there's something else that might be better for you, certainly happy to have that conversation with you.
All right, 520-333-7601. Doug, that's your number to call, or anybody else out there that would like to. And as always, folks, make sure that you check with a qualified professional before you take any action with anything, whether it's Mark or another qualified professional. Make sure that you're asking your advisor before you do take any action. Our final question this week, Mark, on the show here is right here in Tucson, and it's from Katie. And this is one that I know we get all the time as well. We even touched on it earlier in the show. It's that specific magical dollar number that folks think they need. Katie wants to know, do I have to have $1 million saved before I can even think about retiring? It seems like most of my friends have $1 million plus.
Another great question, Katie. Again, everybody's number is different. And that's why we focus so much on having a plan, because really what we want to do is understand, what age you are retiring, or if you're already retired, what age you're at. What's your life expectancy? For some people, if they're retiring in their 60s and they're life expectancy in their 90s, they could be looking at a 30-year retirement. If they have a lot of longevity, they could be looking at a 40-year retirement. So we really need to run those numbers. We also need to calculate inflation. And as we've said before, we use a 3% rate to really determine, how much money you are going to be spending in retirement. We can offset that with maybe some Social Security. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, we can offset it with that. But other than that, we're going to be using your assets in a combination of different things probably to determine how we're going to create that income so you don't outlive your money. So again, $1 million, is that a good number? Maybe, maybe not. For a lot of folks, they might need a lot more than that. It just depends on what you're going to do in retirement. And so we need to those things need to be taken in consideration. And when we do a plan for folks, we can tell them exactly what that number is going to look like, what their spending for the life of their plan is going to be, and then calculating inflation, like I said before, and those sorts of things. So again, setting on whether it's $1 million, $2 million, or $3 million, we can give you a specific number after we've done our planning process for you to really uncover that.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but really, as we say all the time on here, it's really about your income needs more than it is a specific dollar amount, because everybody's different. So really, to find out what your income needs are, you need a plan, and that's where that you could come in and sit down with you and find out what's going on and what your needs are.
Exactly. I mean, you need an income plan. You need a spending plan of what you're going to do, a monthly budget of what you might be spending in retirement. If you're already retired, what are you spending in retirement, so we can kind of ensure that you're not spending too much or in risk of running out of money, making sure your assets, and we talked about lazy money earlier, making sure that your assets are growing at a reasonable pace to keep up with inflation at a minimum, that sort of thing. So what I'd like to do is, we've had another great show, Mark. Very happy to have our own show, Saving with Silverman. Finally, having our own show is exciting over here. But what I want to do is, if whether you've listened to this show, not this show, but if you listened to me on other shows before, I should say, whether you've come in and had a conversation, I can tell you the way that we've really evolved and the way we work with folks on many different levels. Clients can hire us in different ways. So whether you've had a conversation with us before, we can work with clients in many different ways that we weren't able to before. So we've really evolved, and I'm very happy of the service and the value that we can really bring to our clients. So just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through a process we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? So whether you're a delegator or a validator, we can help. I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This doesn't sound like everybody else's offer on the radio, certainly. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you're married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly. So I will only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 3 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, folks, 520-333-7601. That's your number to call or text for Mark Silverman, 520-333-7601. Retirees and pre-retirees, this is a great chance to make sure you're on the right path, getting the right direction for retirement. Mark's going to be able to help you out, show you where you are now, and help you get to where you want to be for that successful retirement. But you have to start the process by calling 520-333-7601. Mark can do a lot of things to help you out to make sure you're going in the right direction, but he can't do any of it if he doesn't get a chance to know you. And that's where you come in. Call or text 520-333-7601 to talk with Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. And Mark, thank you for your time this week. As always, appreciate you being here and appreciate your wisdom.
I'm happy to be here. I hope I want to thank everybody for listening, and hope you got some value from that, and I hope you have a great week as well.
Absolutely. Well, folks, make sure you tune in each and every week for more of Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.